Captain Vex 9 of the Zorb's scientific vessel Knowledge Seeker stared at the glowing planet suspended on the main view screen. Swirls of white vapor coiled across oceans the color of liquid sapphire. Vast continents stretched in hues of green and brown. To his kind, emotional restraint was a virtue, yet he allowed the faintest ripple across his respiratory nodes, a Zorb's closest equivalent to excitement. "This system wasn't on our route," he murmured, tentacles brushing the control panel of his hover disk. The gentle hum beneath him steadied his thoughts. The third planet of an unimpressive yellow star, discovered by accident, now filled his attention. A random fluctuation in the propulsion matrix had pushed them several degrees off course. Fortune, however, favored the curious. "Preliminary scans complete, Captain," announced Science Officer Glix-4. Her 4 eyes shimmered with reflected light as data cascaded across her console. "This world is remarkable. Biodiversity metrics exceed our recorded norms. More intriguing still, one species has achieved rudimentary spaceflight." Vex 9 drifted closer, sensory tentacles curling in thought. "Sentient?" "Indisputably." Glix-4's crest lifted in what her peers recognized as enthusiasm. "They call themselves humans. Their planet, Earth." She rolled the syllables with faint disdain. "Hardly a cosmic name. Still, their neural complexity is unexpected. Crude technology, but advanced cognition." Security Chief Trez-7 shifted uneasily at his station. His chitinous exoskeleton darkened to slate gray, the Zorb hue of concern. "Our mission parameters forbid interference with pre-galactic civilizations." Vex 9 tilted toward him, voice calm but edged with authority. "The High Council's prime directive is to expand knowledge. And the Council is not here. We are. Protocol exists for a reason," Trez-7 countered. "Premature contact can destabilize an entire species." Glix-4 cut in, impatient. "Our extraction protocols are flawless. A subject can be studied and returned without memory contamination. No risk. No consequence." The captain allowed his final membrane to flicker, a gesture of amusement. "Exactly. Retrieve one specimen. Average, unremarkable. Nothing that would skew our data." At her console, Glix-4's appendages danced across the interface. "I have identified a candidate. Location: a military installation in a region they call North America. Occupation: facility maintenance. Male, 34 planetary years, health metrics average." The screen shifted. A dark-haired human balanced on a ladder, replacing a light fixture. He hummed to himself, pausing to glance at a small electronic device in his pocket. "Designation?" asked Vex 9. "They use multiple identifiers. This one answers to Lex Mercer." The captain observed the man with growing satisfaction. "Perfect. Forgettable. The kind who could vanish for hours without notice." Trez-7's carapace pulsed a warning crimson. "Captain, we lack complete psychological profiles. If their species is unstable." "Security Chief," Vex 9 interrupted, his tone sharp. "The risks are negligible. Bring him aboard." The order set the bridge in motion. Technicians tuned the molecular transporter, its crystalline chambers vibrating with suppressed energy. Glix-4 monitored alignment with the planet's electromagnetic field, ensuring the transition would leave no trace. Junior researcher Pog-2 adjusted the quantum stabilizer, his bioluminescence fluttering nervously. "Will the subject suffer damage?" he asked, voice thin. Glix-4 delivered a flat look. "Our technology has extracted specimens from 73 worlds. Name one failure." Pog-2 hesitated. "There was the methane breathers from—" "A calibration error," she snapped. "Hardly relevant. These humans are adaptable. Primitive but resilient." The transporter chamber began its rising hum. Energy fields shimmered. Captain Vex 9 glided forward, Trez-7 at his side, carapace darkened now to near black. "Status?" demanded the captain. "Target isolated. Vital signs stable. Synchronization complete," Glix-4 replied. "Initiating sequence in 3, 2, 1. A column of white-blue radiance erupted on the platform. The molecules twisted, aligned, and coalesced into a distinctly human form. The man stood frozen mid-step, one arm lifted, eyes half closed. Specimen secured. Glix-4 confirmed, scanning. Carbon-based. Water-dependent. Neural structure complex, though inefficient. Pog-2 leaned close, awe in his voice. It looks fragile. Glix-4 corrected absently. Binary sexes. An inefficient reproductive model, but common. The captain's gill plates fluttered in disdain. Short lifespan, limited physiology. And yet, something curious about those neural maps. Trez-7 approached the barrier. Are we certain he carries no weapons? Their culture is aggressive. Our cloaking is undetectable, Glix-4 said firmly. No anomalies present. She reached for a vial of pale sedative. Shall we revive him? Proceed, Vex-9 ordered. Containment Protocols Level 3. A transparent shield shimmered into place around the pad. Glix-4 injected a sequence of revival impulses. The man's chest rose sharply. Fingers twitched. Eyelids fluttered. Then, without panic, Lex Mercer opened his eyes. He scanned the chamber, gaze moving from Pog-2's glowing markings to Trez-7's armored bulk to the captain's floating disk. His expression registered surprise but not terror. Well, he said, voice steady. Guess you folks are real. For a moment, the laboratory stilled. The expected scream, faint, or frantic struggle never came. Instead, the human tilted his head with curious calm. You recognize us? Glix-4 asked, hastily activating the translator. Not exactly. Lex shrugged, an oddly disarming gesture. Rumors, strange stories. Lights in the sky. You know the drill. We do not know this drill, she replied stiffly. Our records indicate humans respond to first contact with fear. Maybe I'm just having a good day. Lex sat cross-legged on the platform as if settling into conversation. Or maybe I've seen enough weird things in government tunnels that this doesn't rank. Trez-7 bristled, exoskeleton shifting shades. The subject is unusually composed. Perhaps the sedative failed. My calculations never fail, Glix-4 retorted. This composure is anomalous. Lex lifted an eyebrow. I can hear you, you know. And I'm not defective. Just used to surprises. The captain drifted closer. We intend no harm. After our observations, you will be returned unharmed. A kidnapping for science. Lex's tone carried wry amusement. Got it. So, what kind of observations are we talking about? His calm rattled them more than panic would have. Vex-9's sensory tentacles stiffened in unease. Trez-7's instincts screamed danger. Glix-4, though, recorded every flicker of behavior, mind racing at the unexpected opportunity. What none of them realized was that their meticulous selection had overlooked one critical detail. Lex Mercer was no ordinary maintenance worker. His file had been deliberately obscured, his true role hidden beneath bureaucratic camouflage. And while he could change light fixtures with ease, his real expertise lay in guarding secrets far more dangerous than burnout bulbs. High above the unsuspecting Earth, the Zorb had taken their specimen. They believed themselves the hunters, masters of flawless technology. Yet the calm man now seated in their containment field smiled faintly, as though he had been expecting them all along. And deep inside the ship's silent systems, the first subtle threads of his plan began to take shape. Lex Mercer sat cross-legged on the shimmering platform, relaxed inside the transparent barrier that sealed him from the rest of the laboratory. The Zorb expected panic, bargaining, or futile aggression. Instead, they found a man who looked as if he had simply walked into an unplanned meeting. Science Officer Glix-4 circled the containment sphere, her appendages flicking across a panel that projected holographic displays. She spoke without lifting her gaze. Subject respiration steady. Cortisol levels below predicted threshold. This data conflicts with all baseline projections. Junior researcher Pog-2 leaned in, his bioluminescence pulsing faint yellow with unease. Humans should be agitated by unfamiliar captivity. At minimum, elevated stress markers. Lex lifted a hand casually. Still here. Still listening. You don't need to talk about me like I'm furniture. The captain allowed a ripple through his sensory tentacles, a subtle reminder that he was observing. Science officer, continue the assessment. Yes, Captain. Glix-4 gestured, and the containment walls shimmered. A sequence of geometric shapes appeared within Lex's view, patterns that shifted in recursive spirals. A simple cognition test, she explained. Lex studied the shapes, lips pressed together in thought. After 12 seconds he said, Base 8 sequential with a displacement factor. You want the next set rotated 90 degrees and repeated twice. He drew the pattern with a finger on the air. The display confirmed his answer. That was quick, Pog 2 whispered. Lucky guess, Lex replied smoothly. I play puzzle games on my phone. Keeps the mind sharp. The next puzzle emerged, this one involving multidimensional folding shapes. Lex exhaled once, then identified the answer in half the average response time logged for Zorb trainees. Glix-4's eyes narrowed. Subject demonstrates higher reasoning capacity than projected. Either an outlier or... She let the implication hang. Lex smiled faintly. Or maybe your test isn't as hard as you think. The security chief shifted nearer, his exoskeleton dark as storm rock. Captain, this human's behavior is inconsistent with projected psychology. He is observing our systems, evaluating, perhaps memorizing. I'm just trying to be a good sport, Lex said lightly. If you're going to kidnap me, I may as well cooperate. The captain floated closer, hover disk humming. Continue the evaluation. Glix-4 activated a new sequence. The sphere brightened, generating thin beams of light that scanned Lex's skeletal and neural activity. Physical metrics within expected variance, she announced. Then her voice cooled. Initiating pain response calibration. A metal probe extended from the console, its tip glowing with concentrated energy. Lex raised his eyebrows. Hold on. Pain response? Is that really necessary? Scientific completeness requires full data, Glix-4 replied. Even humans figured out informed consent matters, Lex countered. Advanced civilization like yours must have ethical rules, right? Glix-4's appendages paused. For a fraction of a second, discomfort crossed her neural crest. The reminder struck home. She herself had authored papers on interspecies ethics. The captain broke the silence. Proceed. Containment ensures no permanent harm. Lex leaned back, exhaling. Fine. Let's see what you've got. The beam touched his forearm. Monitors registered sharp neural stimulation. Lex frowned slightly but otherwise remained still. Level 2. Glix-4 ordered. The beam intensified. Lex yawned. Is this supposed to impress me? I've had worse shocks from a broken toaster. Pog 2's lights flickered in disbelief. Impossible. The sensors record pain response at significant levels. Yet he shows no distress. Level 3. The captain commanded. Lex's vitals spiked, but outwardly he only rolled his shoulders. Static electricity at best. Maybe your machine doesn't translate properly across species. Ever think of that? The comment sliced through Glix-4's pride. What if her calibrations, modeled on limited human data, were fundamentally flawed? For the first time, doubt crept into her analysis. Terminate the sequence, she ordered abruptly. The captain's tentacles stiffened with displeasure. Explain. Our baseline assumptions may be invalid, Glix-4 replied quickly. Data integrity compromised. Lex smiled, just a little. Smart call. Good scientists question their assumptions. The captain turned away, unsettled. Traz 7, however, stepped closer, his carapace pulsing a warning shade. He is manipulating us. His composure is a calculated tactic. Lex spread his hands. Look, if I wanted to fight, I'd be doing more than chatting. I'm curious. You're curious. Let's keep this civil. The barrier flickered briefly as new settings engaged. A second field layered over the first, glowing faintly. Enhanced containment, Trez 7 said grimly. Triple redundancy. Overkill, Lex muttered, but his eyes tracked the adjustments carefully. Moments later, the human stood. Speaking of civility, how about a restroom break? All this scanning works up the bladder. The aliens exchanged puzzled glances. Pog 2 whispered. Inefficient biology. Yet protocol allowed biological needs. Under heavy guard, Lex was escorted down a corridor. He examined the doors as they slid open, noting their faint shimmer. Neural interface locks, right? Elegant design. Do not analyze our systems, Trez 7 snapped. Just admiring craftsmanship, Lex answered, tone easy. When he returned to containment, the captain demanded, Science officer, continue with psychological probing. Lex 4 hesitated. We may gather more from observation than direct stress induction. Lex sat back on the platform, stretching his arms. Observation sounds good. You'll find I'm perfectly average. Nothing worth writing home about. Yet, as she logged his vitals, Glix foresaw the contradiction. His pulse, instead of rising under confinement, had slowed. His body language spoke of control, not fear. Every model she had designed predicted the opposite. She tapped a note into her pad. Specimen demonstrates anomalous resilience. Possible adaptive mechanism beyond database estimates. Trez 7 glared. Or calculated deception. Lex lay back as if preparing for a nap. You two should settle your argument. Scientist versus security. I'll just be here, minding my business. The captain floated forward, trying to mask his unease. You will remain until our research is complete. Then you will be returned. Fine by me, Lex replied, eyes closing briefly. I'm patient. What the Zorb failed to notice was how his gaze lingered a fraction too long on the control panels, how his questions about door systems were not idle, and how every remark concealed a subtle measurement. Behind the calm smile, Lex Mercer was already cataloging their weaknesses. And Glix 4, though unwilling to admit it aloud, felt the first stirrings of doubt, an instinct that this human was not the forgettable specimen they had planned to dissect with charts and scanners. He was something else entirely. The knowledge seeker glided silently above Earth, invisible to the planet's detection systems. Inside, alarms shattered the artificial calm. A containment breach had triggered in Laboratory Delta. Security Chief Trez 7 arrived first, his hover disk slicing through corridors at maximum thrust. His exoskeleton pulsed obsidian, the Zorb's signal of full alert. He expected violence, broken systems, chaos. Instead, he found two guards dazed, blinking, and Lex Mercer standing in a narrow maintenance shaft 3 decks below the lab. Lex raised both hands as the security detail cornered him. Relax. I got lost. The field just vanished. 1 second I'm sitting, next I'm here. Thought maybe I'd find someone to ask directions. His voice carried no fear, only a calm bemusement that made Trez 7's carapace darken further. Containment fields do not simply vanish. Looked like they did, Lex said mildly. He glanced at the open access panel behind him. Nice wiring, by the way. Clean work. Enough. Trez 7 snapped his claws. Guards shoved Lex back toward the lab. When Captain Vex 9 arrived, the report was already waiting. The breach had lasted 23 seconds, enough for the human to walk out and descend 3 decks. Diagnostics blamed a harmonic disruption in the quantum generator, something so improbable it bordered on impossible. This ship has 17 redundancies, Trez 7 growled. 17. For them all to fail simultaneously is not chance, it is design. You're saying he engineered it? Glix 4 asked, incredulous. He has no access to our systems. He was at the field's edge when it collapsed, Trez 7 countered. Coincidence stretches thin. Lex sat back on the platform once more, now inside an enhanced triple-layer containment sphere. He watched the aliens argue, then called out. Maybe it was a hiccup in your power supply. Ever think of that? Vex 9 rotated his hover disk toward him. Explain. I work in maintenance, Lex said simply. Back home, systems fail in funny ways all the time. Vibration, resonance, electrical surges. One glitch cascades to redundancies. Looks impossible on paper, but happens anyway. He shrugged. Maybe your fancy tech isn't immune to bad luck. Pog 2 whispered to Glix 4. He speaks like an engineer. Or a liar, Traz 7 snapped. Before the captain could reply, another alert echoed through the command deck. Propulsion efficiency had dropped 12% since entering the system. The engineering team had been chasing the issue without success. Vex 9's tentacles stiffened. Science officer status. Alignment correct, Glix 4 replied. No mechanical faults detected. Lex cleared his throat. Not that you asked me, but... I hear it. Every alien turned toward him. You hear it? Vex 9 repeated. Background hum in your engines, Lex explained, tilting his head. Too steady for a conventional drive. But the pitch is just off. Like an orchestra with one instrument out of tune. I'd guess your antimatter injectors aren't syncing. Glix 4's eyes flared wide. That matches our chief engineer's theory. Traz 7 bristled. Coincidence again? Lex smiled faintly. I've been fixing broken systems my whole life. Sometimes you don't need schematics. You just listen. The captain drifted closer, intrigued despite himself. Could you isolate which injector? Not one. All of them, Lex answered smoothly. Each at slightly different frequencies, creating a cascade harmonic. Adjusting one won't solve it, you'll need to reset the whole injection sequence. The engineering crew fell silent. It was exactly what they had failed to see. No, Traz 7 barked, cutting through the hush. He wants access. He'll sabotage more systems. But Vex 9's mind ticked faster than his caution. Efficiency loss endangered research. The mission depended on propulsion stability. Limited access, the captain ordered. Under maximum security. Minutes later, Lex was escorted into the cavernous engineering bay. Energy cuffs bound his wrists. 6 guards surrounded him with neural stunners primed. Traz 7 oversaw personally, every movement logged. Lex whistled softly, looking up at the pulsing conduits. Impressive. Very glowy. Focus, Traz 7 snapped. A diagnostic terminal flickered to life, isolated from core systems. Lex leaned forward, careful not to test his restraints. Data streamed in symbols alien to him, yet the visualization of energy flow told its own story. See here? He gestured with his chin at a set of oscillating lines. You're getting interference waves. Reset the primary injector by 0.047 microradians, then cascade the secondaries. Glix 4 translated, relaying instructions to the engineering staff. Within minutes, the recalibration sequence initiated. Systems shifted, pulsing brighter, harmonics realigning like a choir falling back into tune. Efficiency rose, 16% gain, verified in real time. Vex 9's tentacles rippled with approval. Confirmed. The human's assessment is correct. Lex leaned back, satisfied. Told you. Maintenance. Everything boils down to what vibrates when it shouldn't. The captain regarded him with new calculation. You have earned limited accommodations. A proper rest surface, a data pad with non-sensitive materials. Traz 7's carapace pulsed furious crimson. Captain, this is reckless. Your protest is noted. Vex 9 cut him off. The human has proven useful. Knowledge requires risk. Back in containment, Lex stretched out on a padded surface instead of cold plating. A data pad rested beside him, loaded with sanitized human literature. He opened a detective novel, eyes scanning the text with apparent absorption. To the guards outside, he looked placid. To the monitors, he appeared engrossed. What they missed was the rhythm of his fingers tapping the frame. A sequence too deliberate to be idle fidgeting. Each tap sent a microscopic command, worming into maintenance subroutines he had glimpsed during diagnostics. Small shifts, so subtle they bypassed alerts. Ventilation schedules tweaked by milliseconds. Power cycles adjusted by imperceptible margins. Each change alone meant nothing. Together, over hours, they wove the beginnings of something larger. Pog 2 watched from a secondary station, noting the relaxed vitals and steady respiration. He seems content. Content? Traz 7 spat. He escaped once. He fixed our engines as if born to them. Now he taps like a codebreaker. This is not contentment. It is calculation. But his warning met silence. The captain valued results, and the science officer valued data. Neither wanted to hear the security chief's fears. Lex turned a page, lips curling in the faintest smile. The first cracks had formed. And if there was one thing a maintenance man knew, it was how to exploit hairline fractures until the whole structure gave way. The knowledge seeker trembled as alarms rippled through the decks. Environmental controls and residential pod 3 had slipped into emergency mode. The air was thinning, moisture levels collapsing. Captain Vex 9 hovered in the command center, sensory tentacles rigid with strain. Report. Chief Engineer Draz 5 glided in, bioluminescence flashing unevenly. Cause unknown. Diagnostics show no anomalies until the moment of collapse. Backup systems also failed. That is statistically impossible, Glix4 said, voice edged with disbelief. Redundancies should prevent simultaneous failure. Impossible, or sabotage, Traz 7 muttered. His carapace had gone black, his voice clipped. We have one variable aboard we cannot explain, the human. Before the captain could reply, another alert chimed. The quantum data servers in Laboratory Gamma had crashed, erasing 3 days of specimen logs. Backups failed at the same instant. Pog 2's lights flickered a sickly green. Probability of concurrent failure across both systems is 1 in 7 trillion. Silence weighed down the command deck until Traz 7 cut through it. This is no malfunction. The human has compromised us. Security Chief, Vex 9 warned. Do not jump to conclusions without evidence. But Glix4 hesitated, her appendages tightening against her console. The failures are elegant. Each strike affects a critical system, yet stops short of catastrophic loss. It is too precise to be random. Vex 9 said nothing. His disk wobbled slightly, betraying unease. In Laboratory Delta, Lex Mercer leaned against the curved wall of his enhanced containment chamber, calmly leafing through his mystery novel. The 2 guards outside shifted uncomfortably as fresh alarms echoed. Lex looked up. Ship doesn't sound happy. Remain silent. One guard snapped, though his voice betrayed nerves. Lex rose, stretching his shoulders. Gravity fluctuation next, if I had to guess. The guards frowned. Moments later the floor lurched beneath them, gravity cutting out then slamming back in with uneven force. Both staggered, clutching railings. Lex rode the shift with unsettling balance. He smiled faintly. Told you. The captain, Glix4, and Traz 7 rushed into the lab. The containment chamber glowed opaque. Its transparency protocols had switched to privacy mode. Override. Traz 7 barked. System not responding. Pog 2 reported, panic edging his tone. Visual feed offline. Biosensors detect the subject inside, but no specific activity can be tracked. Deactivate and reset. Unable, sir. Commands loop back on themselves. For 10 seconds the opaque swirl remained. Then the barrier cleared on its own. Lex sat cross-legged on his bed, datapad resting on his knees, expression placid. Whoa, he said, feigning confusion. Lights flickered, wall turned cloudy. Thought you were running another test. Traz 7 surged to the barrier's edge, exoskeleton burning crimson. What did you do? Me? Lex widened his eyes. Been reading about Detective Marlowe's case of the missing heiress. Not exactly sabotage material. The captain's voice cut across the tension. Our ship is experiencing cascading malfunctions. Human, what do you know of this? Lex leaned back, voice calm, conversational. Sounds like quantum resonance destabilization. Starts in propulsion, spreads into life support, then data systems, then gravity. I've seen it before. That is impossible, Glix-4 snapped. Your species lacks quantum technology. Maybe so, Lex allowed. But patterns are patterns. One misaligned harmonic infects everything. If I were you, I'd isolate subsystems and apply dampening fields before the cascade grows. The captain studied him. And if we fail? Full reset, Lex answered evenly. Shut everything down, purge the resonance, start from factory defaults. Painful, time-consuming, but survivable. You speak with certainty, Traz-7 accused. As though you planned this. Lex met his stare calmly. If I had planned it, your ship wouldn't still be functional. The quiet confidence unsettled even Glix-4. She tapped notes furiously, her mind racing. The human's vitals, instead of showing stress, indicated relaxation, cortisol dropping as system alerts multiplied. Pog 2 leaned close to her. He grows calmer the worse our crisis becomes. It makes no sense. Lex caught her glance and winked. A gesture light-hearted on the surface, yet loaded with implication. The senior officers convened in the command center. The ship dimmed under emergency power, red strips casting long shadows across metallic walls. We must permit the human access, Vex-9 said at last. He may resolve the crisis. You cannot be serious, Traz-7 barked. Give him access and we hand him our throat. He already knows more than we intended, Glix-4 countered. His cognitive resilience, his intuitive engineering sense, this is unprecedented data. Denying access wastes opportunity. Opportunity? Traz-7's voice cut like a blade. Look at the pattern, life support, servers, gravity. Each strike cripples us without destroying us. That is the work of an infiltrator gathering leverage. The captain raised one appendage for silence. Enough. He will be granted tightly restricted access to engineering systems. Diagnostic terminal only. Guards at every step. Security chief, your men may keep weapons trained on him at all times. Traz-7's carapace darkened near black, but he bowed stiffly. I will obey, under protest. Lex was escorted to engineering again, energy cuffs tight around his wrists. Stunners tracked his every move. The chamber pulsed with warning lights as crews scrambled across stations, their movements jerky with rising fear. Chief Engineer Draz-5 met them, markings flickering. Captain, we are losing automated control of 70% of systems. This human cannot possibly. Let him see the data, Vex-9 ordered. Lex scanned the diagnostic terminal, head tilted as though listening to distant music. Phase converters running in reverse synchronization. Feeding the resonance instead of suppressing it. Draz-5 froze. That's correct. Lex gave a small nod. Shift the primary converter's phase, cascade the others. Add dampening protocols before the restart. That'll buy you time. The engineer obeyed. Slowly, stability readings began to climb. Vex-9's tentacles eased, though unease lingered in his eyes. Remarkable. Lex smiled faintly. Glad I could help. Maybe now I can get something decent to eat. At the edge of the room, Pog 2 sifted through the ship's database on human occupations. His curiosity sharpened into fear. Captain, he whispered, maintenance worker is a broad classification. Some specialize in counterintelligence infrastructure, protecting military facilities from infiltration. Glix-4's eyes locked on Lex, realization striking like a lightning bolt. We have not captured a maintenance worker. Lex stood calmly at the console, cuffs glinting under the lights, eyes steady. For the first time since his arrival, he let a sliver of calculation show through his calm facade. The system still flickered, the resonance still threatened, but one truth became undeniable. Their average specimen was no accident. The cracks in the knowledge seeker were no longer just mechanical. They ran through command, through trust, through the very heart of the mission. And Lex Mercer, calm, observant, smiling at the chaos, was the one widening them. The engineering bay of the knowledge seeker pulsed with frantic energy. Warning lights strobed across silvered walls, and the rhythmic thrum of the ship's core fluctuated like an unsteady heartbeat. Technicians rushed between stations, voices tight, movements hurried. In the center of the chaos, Lex Mercer stood cuffed at the wrists, stunners trained on him from every angle. He appeared unfazed, calmly scanning the diagnostic terminal while guards shifted nervously. Tres 7 loomed close, his carapace glowing with hard crimson. "One wrong motion, human, and you will collapse in neural agony." Lex gave a half-smile. "You keep saying that, Chief, but every time you try, your toys don't work the way you expect." The security chief stiffened, but before he could retort, Captain Vex 9 glided forward on his hover disk. His tentacles hung taut, betraying the stress behind his otherwise measured tone. "Focus. The resonance continues to spread. We are losing system control by the minute." Lex leaned toward the data stream, eyes sharp. "Your phase converters are fighting each other. They're feeding instability, not damping it." Chief Engineer Draz 5 blinked in disbelief. "That matches our own analysis." "Then you know the fix," Lex said. "Phase shift the primary, cascade the rest in sequence, and dampen before restart." Technicians scrambled to carry out the procedure. Slowly, the chaos of the readings began to settle. The ship steadied with a shiver. A hush fell over the bay. "It works," Draz 5 whispered. Vex 9 straightened on his disk, tentacles rippling with relief. "Confirmed. The human has again stabilized us." Tres 7 slammed an appendage against the railing. "Stabilized? Or positioned us for the next collapse? Can none of you see? He is orchestrating this." Lex raised his eyebrows. "If I wanted you destroyed, Chief, you'd already be spinning in a gravity well. I've been helping, not hurting. Helping with knowledge your species should not possess." Traz 7 shot back. Vex 9 turned, his voice low. "Then explain, human. How do you know what you know?" The moment hung heavy. Lex studied the aliens around him, all waiting for his answer. His calm smile faded, replaced by something sharper, controlled authority. "You really want to know who I am?" His voice carried no humor now. Silence thickened. Lex straightened, shoulders squared, tone precise. "Commander Alexander Mercer. Earth Defense Intelligence, Counter-Technology Division. My cover as a maintenance worker? That was the fiction. My job is to prevent infiltration of human facilities. When you pulled me out, you didn't grab a janitor. You grabbed the wrong man." The bay froze. The words landed like a detonation. "That cannot be true," Blix 4 whispered. "Your species is centuries behind this level of development." Lex's gaze cut to her. "That's what we let you think." Before anyone could move, Tres 7 barked an order. "Neural disruptors, fire!" Stunners blazed, beams slamming into Lex's chest. Energy should have dropped him instantly. Instead, the bolts fizzled out, lighting the console behind him. Lex shook his head almost sadly. "Told you your toys wouldn't work." Panic rippled through the engineering crew. "How?" Vex 9 demanded, tentacles rigid. Lex tapped his boot heel against the deck. "Standard issue subspace transponder. You might call it insurance. Also, while you thought I was being helpful, I was rewriting your diagnostic feedback. Every time you checked the logs, you were looking at illusions I planted." Draz 5's bioluminescence dimmed. "Impossible. No primitive could." "Primitive?" Lex cut him off. "You abducted a counterintelligence operative trained to dismantle hostile systems. I've been inside your ship since the moment your containment field glitched. That glitch, by the way, wasn't an accident." Traz 7's carapace flickered between crimson and black. "He admits it, sabotage." Lex ignored him, eyes on the captain. "You wanted knowledge. Here it is. Earth is not defenseless. We've been watching you, and others like you, for decades. You just proved why." At that instant, every display in the bay flickered, then shifted to a stark emblem, a stylized Earth encircled by 7 stars, the letters ETD beneath. Blix 4 whispered, awe creeping into her voice. "Earth Technology Defense. Lex's mouth curved into a thin smile. Operation Trojan Star. Phase 1, Assessment of Zorb Technology. Phase 2, Acquisition of your databases. Phase 3, Demonstration. A tremor coursed through the deck as space itself seemed to ripple. On the main view screen, a sleek vessel emerged from distortion. Smaller than the Knowledge Seeker, yet bristling with precision. Its hull bore the same 7-star emblem now glowing across every Zorb console. A crisp voice cut through the comms. Commander Mercer, this is Vigilance. Phase 2 complete. Standing by for boarding. Gasps filled the engineering bay. Vex 9's disk sank lower, his membranes pale with shock. You led us here. You invited us to capture you. Lex met his gaze without flinching. Not invited. Allowed. There's a difference. Glix 4's eyes darted between him and the human vessel outside. You used us as test subjects. Observation works both ways, Lex replied. You wanted to study us. We wanted to measure you. Call it reciprocity. Traz 7 erupted. Captain, order full lockdown. Activate Omega protocols. He stopped short as bulkheads began to lower, then froze halfway. The system retracted them again. The ship's voice chimed coldly. Lockdown sequence aborted. Command authority overridden. Lex folded his arms. You really should patch that diagnostic loophole in your lockdown code. Panic broke across the engineering crew. Some bolted for exits, only to find doors sealed. Others stared at their captain in silent despair. Vex 9 managed to steady himself enough to speak. Why? If your civilization is capable of this, why deception? Why risk yourself? Lex's voice hardened. Because Earth has rules. We don't make first contact unless provoked. But when you abduct one of ours, that rulebook shifts. I'm here to make sure you understand, we're not specimens. We're players. The bay doors hissed open, and 6 humans strode in. Black uniforms gleamed with the 7-star insignia, movements crisp, disciplined. They carried compact equipment that radiated authority. At their head, a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair spoke with commanding calm. Captain Reyes, Earth Technology Defense. This vessel is now under joint authority. Her team spread out with practiced precision, securing the bay without raising weapons. Reyes looked to Lex. Status, Commander? Ship's systems are ours. Crew is contained, Lex replied smoothly. Recommend we move to database extraction. Proceed. For the first time since the mission began, the Zorb crews saw their roles reversed completely. They were no longer the observers, they were the observed. Vex 9's voice faltered. You mean to make us prisoners? Guess, Captain Reyes corrected evenly. With full rights under interspecies ethical protocol. Something you failed to extend. Glix 4's neural crest drooped. We sought knowledge. You'll still share it, Reyes said. Only now, under terms that respect both sides. Lex gave her a nod. Phase 3 complete. He turned back toward the Zorb, gaze steady, voice low. Consider this our introduction. Earth is done being studied in cages. The silence that followed was broken only by the thrum of the human ship locking into place, its presence a reminder that the balance of power had shifted, and nothing in the galaxy would ever look at Earth the same way again. The Knowledge Seeker was no longer in Zorb hands. Humans moved with practiced precision through its corridors, mapping systems, cataloging terminals, pulling encrypted star charts into portable cores. The once confident crew now sat in guarded clusters, watched by black uniformed operatives whose eyes held no malice, only unshakable purpose. Captain Vex 9 remained in the engineering bay, hovering low on his disk. His membranes quivered faintly, a sign of exhaustion. Science Officer Glix 4 lingered nearby, her appendages clutched tight around her datapad. Security Chief Trez 7 stood rigid, carapace a muted gray, the color of resignation. Lex Mercer stood opposite them, freed of cuffs, his stance relaxed but his voice edged with steel. You wanted a specimen. You got one. The problem is, you misjudged what kind of specimen I was. Glix-4 finally spoke, her tone quieter than before. You used us. Every test, every observation, you allowed it to proceed so you could gather data of your own. That's the job, Lex said simply. Counterintelligence isn't about firepower. It's about letting the enemy think they hold control, while you rewire the walls around them. Traz 7's claws flexed sharply. Enemy? We are not at war. You weren't at war with the other species you abducted either, Lex replied evenly. Intent doesn't erase violation. Captain Reyes, leader of the boarding team, entered then, her stride measured, her gaze firm. She held a slim console bearing glowing Zorb glyphs now overlaid with human code. Commander Mercer, database transfer is complete. Their star charts, propulsion data, and biological archives are secured. A hush fell among the Zorb. You would strip us of our knowledge, Vex-9 said bitterly. Reyes answered without hesitation. Knowledge hoarded without consent breeds tyranny. Shared knowledge builds balance. You'll still have your research, Captain, only now Earth has it too. Glix-4 bristled, compound eyes flickering. We are scientists. We sought understanding. You sought it through kidnapping, Reyes countered. You call it extraction. We call it abduction. The words matter less than the fact. You crossed a line. Lex stepped closer, voice quiet but firm. And you taught us something. Your tech is advanced, your protocols meticulous, but your arrogance blinded you. You assumed the universe held no surprises. That mistake nearly cost you your ship. Traz 7 spoke, his tones stripped of bluster. What happens now? Now? Reyes looked to Lex, then back to the crew. Now comes the exchange. The exchange began not with weapons, but with chairs. The Zorb were led, firmly but respectfully, into the same laboratory where Lex had been confined. Transparent containment spheres shimmered to life around them, not as cages, but as safeguards. Monitors tracked their vitals. Nutritional supplies tailored to Zorb biology were delivered in sterilized containers. You will not be harmed, Reyes told them. You will be studied, yes, but under protocols you denied your own subjects. Consent for invasive procedures. Transparency of purpose. Right to refuse. The irony was inescapable. You reversed the roles, Glix-4 said, watching as her biometrics scrolled across a human tablet. We become the observed. Lex inclined his head. You said it yourselves, science is about adaptation. Consider this your opportunity to learn what ethical science feels like. Vex-9's hovered disk remained motionless. The High Council will never permit this humiliation to stand. Then let them hear the terms, Reyes said. This is not conquest. This is diplomacy by demonstration. Your council will receive a treaty proposal. Cooperation instead of unilateral exploitation. Knowledge in exchange for respect. You expect them to agree? Vex-9 asked. They'll agree, Lex said, his tone quiet but certain. Because if they don't, Earth won't be their only problem. Every other species you've taken will want the same accountability. And you've left a long trail. The words landed like blades. Even Glix-4 had no counter. Hours passed. Human operatives moved through the vessel, copying libraries of xenobiological data, propulsion logs, records of contact with dozens of worlds. Each file taken was also mirrored back, so nothing was lost to the Zorb, only shared. Meanwhile, Lex took a seat across from Traz 7, separated by the containment field. For the first time, he spoke without the sharpness of defiance. You were right about me from the beginning, he admitted. Your instincts told you I didn't belong in that bubble. Traz 7's carapace shifted to a pale, weary hue. It made no difference. My warnings were dismissed. Lex's mouth curved in a faint smile. That's the burden of security. People ignore you until the fire's already burning. Doesn't mean you were wrong. The alien tilted his head slightly, a gesture almost resembling respect. Nearby, Glix-4 tapped notes furiously into her data pad even while confined. Her curiosity refused to dim. You hid your intelligence from us deliberately, she said. Why? Lex met her gaze. Because open cards lose games. Earth doesn't broadcast its real capabilities. Not yet. Not until someone forces our hand. You forced it. And now the galaxy will know, she murmured. Exactly, he replied. You wanted to introduce us to the stars as specimens. Instead, you've introduced us as equals. When the final data cores were secured, Captain Reyes gathered both crews in the engineering bay. Humans stood tall, Zorb huddled yet listening. This is the message your High Council will receive, she declared. Earth has entered the galactic stage. We are not prey. We are not curiosities. We are partners, or rivals, depending on how you choose to meet us. She paused, letting the words echo. You will be returned to your people unharmed. But with knowledge you did not expect to carry. Humans adapt faster than you calculated, and we remember everything. Vex 9's membranes quivered faintly. And if our council refuses cooperation? Reyes met his eyes without blinking. Then Earth will not stand alone. You have made enough enemies through your methods. You may find that your scientific detachment has left you surrounded. Silence followed, heavy and final. Later, as the human boarding team prepared to depart with the secured data, Lex lingered near the viewport. The stars stretched endless beyond, the Zorb ship steady once more in its corrected harmonics. Glix 4 drifted close inside her containment bubble. You engineered this entire sequence, didn't you? The escape, the system failures, the trust you earned, it was all calculated. Lex considered the stars before answering. Maintenance is about foresight. You don't fix the break when it happens, you prevent it before it collapses. This mission was no different. Her compound eyes narrowed. And yet you smiled through it all. Even when under guard. Because I knew how it would end, Lex said softly. He tapped the glass of the viewport once, almost idly. Humans don't belong in cages. We build the cages. And we decide who gets out. The transfer completed, the Vigilance disengaged from the Zorb vessel. With one last exchange of glances, some hostile, some thoughtful, the human operatives withdrew, leaving the knowledge seeker battered in pride but intact in structure. As the smaller ship folded space and vanished, Vex 9 remained slumped low on his disk. Glix 4 finally whispered what all of them thought. We sought to study primitives. Instead, we became the primitives studied. Tres 7's carapace dimmed to an unreadable shade. And they have only just begun. Far away, aboard the Vigilance, Lex Mercer stood at parade rest before Captain Reyes. Operation Trojan Star complete, he reported. Reyes gave a rare, thin smile. And the galaxy just learned its first real lesson about Earth. Lex allowed himself the faintest chuckle. That we're not the animals in the zoo. We're the keepers. The stars stretched infinite ahead, and for the first time in their history, humanity had declared itself not as prey, not as specimens, but as players.